All right, so officially this is good afternoon. It's nice meeting you all, and it's lovely to see a face and to hear the voices associated with the faces. As you know, I'm Michelle Stuart McKoy, and I have you with EDML. I call it Integrating Culture in the Classroom. EDML 5513 5530. And it's all about how do you integrate culture into the foreign language classroom, as you would have seen by now. There are a couple of things that I want to point out, a couple of things that I want us to talk about together as a group before we move on. The email that I sent out this morning, you would have noticed that I pointed out that I didn't put up the details for the assessment because I have a few concerns, and I think that there are some things that we needed to discuss as a group before we continue. So we're going to use this session for that. Hi Chantal, nice for you to join us. Now, everybody has logged in successfully. I have seen that. My concern is that the preliminary activities have not been completed by everybody. Now, there are only 7 of you, and the preliminary activity is simply saying, hey, this is what I look like, this is what I do. That's updating your profile picture. And the forum, which says this is, well, there are a couple of things that I asked you to do in the forum. One of the things that I needed to understand that as a part of the course, there is an engagement task component, okay, which means that in addition to the program that you will develop, in addition to the tests that you will create, the little tasks that you do in each of the units online have a grade assigned to them. So if you had looked at the guide, you would have noticed that there is something that says engagement task 10%. How many persons went through the guide? Okay. Tony, did you go through the guide? Mr. Allen?
Sorry, what was the question? I didn't hear.
Did you go through the course guide? I know you're not on the system very often. Are you having any challenges?
Yeah, well, I mean, I minor challenges.
Okay. Did you see the message that I sent out to say that the tasks are supposed to be completed within a period of time, and if they're not, you would still get feedback, but a grade would not be assigned?
Yeah, I saw that recently, yes.
All right, so one of the things that I'm going to implore of you guys, everybody, is that try and log in at least the 2 days that you're supposed to be having the classes. All right, I ask no more of you. You're supposed to be having classes for 5 hours on a Monday and 5 hours on a Thursday. Now, one of the beautiful things of putting the material online for you is that I don't force you to go in for the 5 hours from 2 to 7 o'clock on a Monday or 2 to 7 o'clock on a Thursday. What I expect, however, is that you do go in on a Monday and on a Thursday at whatever time you want and check the material out, do the activities. Failing that, if you know that you can work with going in a little at a time, that works better for me. I would suggest that you go in a little each day and do a couple of the activities, go through the material. All right? But because you are slated to have 2 set classes per week, I expect that as the minimum for you. Is that understood by everybody? Because if we were having Zoom sessions for the 5 hours and the material weren't online, you would have to be here, wouldn't you? Nod, just nod, or shake your head. So you're expected to do that at least twice per week. Is that clear? So it means that if you're doing this twice per week, you're not missing out on anything that is essential per week. So I'm going to ask that on a weekly basis, you log in minimum twice per week. And I'm not saying that for each time that you log in, you stay the 5 hours, But log in so that you can at least go through the material, you can see what the activities are, you can ask whatever questions before it comes to the end of the session and you're having problems and challenges. Okay? Now the site that I had set up for you, it's the Moodle platform, is just on a different location. Has anybody been having any issues with that? No. All right. Remember that there is a question and answer forum there, so that if you have any challenges before I get a chance to log in or before we have a Zoom session, that you simply post it there. If I can answer it there, I will. If anybody else can respond, please do so. And then when we have the session, make sure you bring that up again so that any kind of clarification can be done. Are you all with me still? All right. So that has to do with the login and so and the resources and the activities that you're supposed to do. The Zoom sessions, no. Ideally or originally, the Zoom sessions are meant to be the classics, 5 hours twice per week. Because I have put the material online for you to go through instead of us meeting as a group and going through the material. You realize that your Zoom, you have only what, three Zoom sessions I think I have there. But I did point out that if you need a session for us to meet and discuss, you should let me know beforehand, all right, so that I can put it in on a Monday or on a Thursday. So let me ask you from now, is there anybody who wants an additional Zoom session? You feel like you're gonna need another session from now? You can type your response quickly, please. All right, so Shervana is good. What about the rest of the group?
I'm actually going to check the dates that we scheduled.
Go again, Denise.
I was actually going back to check the dates that we're supposed to have the meeting.
Oh, I can tell you. This Thursday, next Thursday, and the Monday after, because I had that the last assignment would have been due on the final Thursday the 18th. So I had a Zoom session scheduled for the Monday instead of the Thursday. All right, so that's fine. Based on what I'm seeing, we're fine with the sessions as they are. All right, so the sessions are okay. What about the content? Before I get to the assessment, which is the B for me, what about the content? Have you been going through the material? Are there any questions? One of the things that I tend to tell students is that the course is easy. It is a very easy course because it is something that you can relate to. It's culture. It is something that is a part of us, and it's the culture that you teach your students, whether it's in a French class or in the Spanish class, and it's the culture that we live and breathe that we use to compare and to highlight certain differences or similarities when we teach the foreign language. So the content for me is easy. It may not be the same for you, but have you been reading and have you been having any challenges at all with the content itself? Are you uncomfortable with me? Or are you usually this quiet?
We're not usually this quiet. But,
well, what happened?
Well, you're new. So,
all right. I need to
we have to get accustomed to you first, I think. Anyway, for me, the first set of information that you put up last week with regards to what is culture, the article that you wrote, the one from Susan, somebody, I actually found them as to be eye-openers for me. The ones that you put up last, that came on must be 2 days ago.
Right.
I'm still reading the one on teaching culture. It's showing me some interesting things. Like I just saw something that said that you should create a culture island in your classroom, and it says that you should give your children names. I thought that to be interesting, because I just said to my son, "Oh, I think I'm gonna call you Pierre."
Okay.
And he said, "Oh yes, I know how to spell that." But my question really is, I never personally used to go into culture the way you have it here, but I can actually understand the necessity for it. My concern really is that I don't get a lot of time in the grand scheme of things. On paper, they say you should have 3 periods per week in lower school for the foreign language at minimum, and they should be 35 to 40 minutes. I don't get 3. I usually get 2. And I was wondering how do I integrate this especially because they're talking about, I'm at the part that says the culture capsule, and you know, these things, they sound very interesting, but I was wondering, well, how much time would they take up, especially since that everything else is there?
All right. Does anybody want to take that on before I respond? Tony, you look as if you're eager to answer. No? You would have realized that there is a section that says the importance of teaching culture. And it had a section that spoke about all the challenges that the foreign language teacher faces. And you realize that these are common everyday problems. The class size is way too large. The time isn't enough. It's a foreign language. So here in Jamaica, even though there was the announcement recently that Spanish is going to be made officially as a second language, one of the things that we find in our classrooms, and this is what happens to us, is that Spanish is shoved behind the back, and therefore you will have English language, math, and the science getting, say, 5-6 sessions per week, but Spanish is 2, or in some cases it's only 1 session per week. And in that 1 session, the teacher is expected to teach all the core skills, as well as integrate the culture, because they tell us that the culture cannot be taught without the language. And then you have all these different ideas. Now, how best do you create that balance? You can't really teach the language without teaching the culture, because almost everything in the language has a cultural component. It really depends on whether or not you're focusing on high culture or common everyday culture. The whole matter of using things like a culture capsule or you creating albums and so on is I think can be worked into the bigger lesson that you have. So let us say you have a 35-minute class. How long are your classes?
40 minutes.
40 minutes.
40?
40.
All right, 40.
That would be 35.
All right, so let's say 35, 40 minutes. So you have a single session class, which is about 35 minutes. How do you work that in? You have your theme. Well, I hope you work with a theme. So I tend to use themes. So I have a theme that looks at, hi Wendy, and nice meeting you. Please turn the video on so I can see what you look like. The session is being recorded, so you'll be able to listen after we are done. So you have a session, and let us say you're talking about in this. Do you teach Spanish or French?
French.
All right, my French is horrible. Je parle un peu de français, right? But I'm sorry.
Tu parles un petit peu de français.
Oui. My Spanish is much better. But let us say you're looking at a class that looks at forming new. I'm sorry?
topic. You can shopping is good if that's gonna make you easier for you.
Okay, wonderful. So you're looking at shopping, and you have already added, because you can't teach all the cultural components in shopping, right? So for this particular introductory lesson, let's say it's an introductory lesson, you have decided that you are going to look at 2 or 3 of the common cultural components and maybe one of the Olympian culture component, the big C. All right. So you're probably going to look at well, I don't know. I don't know much about the French culture, so I'm just going to sort of use the Spanish as an example, and then you do the comparison. But one of the things that I was suggesting is that you plan your lesson in such a way that one of the mini activities would be a modified version of the capsule. All right? Or you see, because although the suggestions are made, sometimes in the context in which we find ourselves, we cannot execute it as it is. And one of the things that we have to do is to be realistic and to be practical about what we do. How much of this can we truly carry out as is? Was it set up for the Caribbean setting? Was it set up for a St. Lucian classroom? Was it set up for an American classroom? Consider the differences between the different countries, the different locations. And if you realize that you can use this as is, go ahead. Most times I have to modify the information that I use with my students. So look at it and tailor it. Can you use a little part of it? Can you modify it so that you can still integrate that cultural activity within the bigger aspect of teaching the I would like to buy that as against buy this, and how best do you enter? That is fine, darling. How best do you integrate that? How best do you introduce the cultural component within the bigger aspect of shopping? Because shopping itself is one big cultural experience. So you could probably try that, Denise. Look at it and say, given my students, given the time that I have, given the resources that we have, which one of these activities can I use as is? Which one of the activities can I tailor? And what activities can I actually come up with on my own? Because you don't have to just follow everything that they give you like that, you know. We Caribbean people are very creative. So you try something here, you try something there, you mix it up, you get a pot pourri, it works, and then you keep doing that sort of thing. You following me, Denise?
Yes, ma'am.
So you can try that. It's and this is for everybody now. As you try that, bear in mind that the challenges that teachers face is real. One year, one of my students said to me, Miss, I don't know how I'm going to do this because I have a wall-to-wall carpet of students. Now that means that class is huge. So how do you do that? How do you give each student a chance to engage in the activities that you want and so forth? So you have all of those things that you have to consider. And then out of all of that, we ask the impossible. Make a balance. But you really have to look at, this is the context that I'm working with. These are the challenges that I'm facing. These are the resources that I have or do not have. This is how I could modify it, and you try it. But one of the things that we cannot do is we cannot simply just teach the grammatical component and don't make mention of the cultural aspect. The article that I have written, when I went to Cuba the first time, I had the shock of my life. I did not talk. The paper said I didn't talk for the duration of the trip. Believe you me, I said nothing. It was more than just a culture shock. I was in a cultural coma for the period. So, and then that is when I realized that we really need to teach the underlying components. I don't know how many of you have read Wilger Rivers' book. Wilger Rivers, and it's one of the Bibles that we use in foreign language teaching. So you all need to be familiar with Wilger Rivers. It's an old book from 1981, but it's an excellent book. Wilger Rivers says that a part of the problem with culture is that within the foreign language classroom, we teach the formal aspects of the language. So in Spanish, we teach the students to say buenos días and to say ¿cómo está usted? Very, very, the formal aspect, they need to pronounce the different aspects, the different components of the words and so forth. And when they go and they're immersed, even for a weekend, they don't hear that. They don't hear buenos días, ¿cómo estás? They hear buenos días, ¿cómo estás? And they look at you in shock. And so Wilger Rivas says that one of the things that we do when we teach the students the language and the culture is that we teach it in such a formal way that the natives themselves don't recognize it. So how do we balance that? What I do with my students, I say, because you're going to be examined and these are the things we're looking for to find out whether or not you can master the pronunciation, you can master the meanings and so forth. What I say to my students is that if you should go to a foreign speaking, if you should go to Spain or if you should go to Colombia or if you should go to any of these countries, you are more than likely to hear something like this. So if you prepare them at home here, when they hear a native speaker, they will be able to understand. So again, it comes back to how do I balance all of this? I need to teach them this in the classroom, but the truth of the matter is when they go out into the world, they're going to hear the cultural components, that is the culture with the common scene, the everyday life, the everyday happenings. And it's not quite the same thing that we've been teaching in the class. All right? Okay. Any other question or queries or comments or anything like that? I'm going into the course because I need to mention a couple other things. Anybody else? No? All right. Now, for Unit 1. Unit 1 is where we started off with the stereotypes, right? And guys, I still wanted to go in and complete the Unit 1 activities. Some persons still haven't done anything. I need you to do that. Because we're having this session, I'm actually going to extend the period and grade everybody's work, so you will get the grade, but you need to do so. And I'll put up a notice as to by when it should be done. But one of the things that we tend to do when we teach culture is we try to remove from students this stereotype, okay? The stereotype that all Spanish people are this and all French people are that and so forth. But we ourselves need to look at whether or not we harbor stereotypes before we can then say to the students, this is what happens or this is not, this isn't the case. So we need to take a good look at, do we harbor any stereotypes that we pass on to the students, all right? Having done that, we remove whatever stereotypic views we have of the culture, and we ensure that in passing it on to the students, we do so in a structured way, all right? Did everybody do the Quizlet? What grades did you get?
4. 4. And I got 4 because I found the answers to the approaches thing in this week's paper.
No, it was in last week's. It was in the week for the let me see. Let me see, and then I would apologize most profusely, and then I would redo the Quizlet. Let me just double check. How many days? All right, it's not into that one. Aha! It is in that unit. It is the reading that is right below from classroom instruction to production. It's the one that's called Importance of Culture. And it is within that reading that you have the reason for teaching culture, and you have the 4 different results that the approaches that come up about from the laissez-faire approach, and then you have the problems associated with teaching culture. That's the reading that has all of that. I'm not hearing.
Teaching culture, you said? That's in week 2?
It's in unit 1.
2.
Unit 1, and it's called Importance of Culture.
Culture?
Importance of culture. Nobody see that? Work with me. Unit 1, culture with a capital C or common C. We're all seeing that? Just nod. Yes? Alright. Then you see Jamaica, no problema. El mundo hispano. What is culture? There's a link to a webpage that's called Culture. And then there is Culture in the Jamaican Foreign Language Classroom. I see the head start moving. I don't know if you're seeing it or not. Just not.
Yes,
and then there is From Foreign Language Instruction to Production. You see that? And below that, there is an article set which says Importance of Culture. Do you all see that? Now, it is within that file that those quiz answers are. Okay, thanks, Claudia. So it is within that the different approaches go. All right? All right. May I move on to Unit 2? Okay. Now, Unit 1 simply sets the foundation for what exactly is culture, what is a stereotype, why we should avoid stereotypes, what are the different types of culture, meaning culture may be a common C or a capital C, and then it gives us all the different names that capital C goes with and common C goes with. And simply getting a feel of what exactly is culture in the classroom. All right? Unit 2 is where we begin to get into the meat of the matter. Now, I would like to apologize because I realize that most of the material that I have is, well, almost everything that I have is Spanish. Over the last couple of years, I have had Spanish-only students, all right? So for those who teach French, you will see me indicate that this is Spanish-only. My videos are Spanish-only, so I will put up something to say, please find a French video and do this, all right? So, and for the others, I am doctoring as best I can so that you have both French and Spanish resources there. But because my students have been largely Spanish, you'll find that the material is largely Spanish, all right? Now, Unit 2 is where we look at how do we, from a topic, pull the different cultural aspects, and how do we go into integrating it within a unit, within a lesson. So you'll find that the first video clip is a video of a new employee, right? And then there is a list of the different types of activities that could come from the video. How many persons have watched the video? Denise, you teach French. Do you know any Spanish?
My Spanish is up to 5th form, ma'am.
Oh, so you do know a little Spanish. Who else teaches French? Darlene, you're French only? You teach both. Tony, you are French only? Oh, you teach both. So Denise, you're the only person who teaches just French. All right. But your Spanish is up to 5th form. So that first activity is a video in which they are, well, there's that conversation that takes place, and then the list of different activities that could come out of it, meaning the different topics that you could teach your students. So there is the whole professions, where you could teach the different professions using the verb career and self. There is the role of the employment agency, which is a cultural activity. There is using the newspapers, them changing verbs, excuse me. There's workplace, different jobs and workplace, and the use of negative expressions. All right. And below that, you see activities which could come from it. You could come up with a reading comprehension with the students. You could have a multiple choice. You could have them actually create extended writing activities, dialogues, miniature Jeopardy games, that sort of thing. All right. Now, the reason that is set up for you is because one of the things that I would actually have you do with the second video, Una Invitación Confusa, is to do something similar. What are the topics and possible activities that comes from watching that video? All right, not a lesson plan that you will do, just simply say, having watched the video, I realized that these would be the cultural components coming out of it. These would be the grammatical aspects that could be taught. All right, so the activity has not been set up as yet, but just in case you were wondering, why is that second video there? You will see that you get an example of something before you're asked to carry out an activity. So I don't throw you out in the deep like that. All right? Communicative functions are there because one of the things based on the outline you would have noticed is that you're going to be expected to create a plan, a program, a cultural program, like a unit plan into which you integrate your cultural aspects. Now, you would have done all the other courses before, which include writing your lesson plans, right? Right? You all did ED ML 5504?
Yes.
Or, and in that course, did you look at unit planning, the importance of planning and so forth? And you have a template that you use to create your unit plans?
We did one. We did one.
But did you get a template?
Yes.
You got a template. Okay. So more than likely, you would use that template. I wouldn't go through the matter of going through that again with you. All right? But what I usually do, guys, and I'm warning you here, I usually provide my students with a sample. Okay? Over the years, students do very well, students do not so well, students come up with different interesting ways. I have become very fearful of providing you with samples because it has been backfiring on me more than ever. A sample is simply getting a very general idea of what the assignment could look like. What has happened over the years is that my students think that the sample means that this is the standard that I use, and therefore my assignment must look just like that, must have all the components that the sample has. I am fearful. I am really torn. I'm not sure if I should give you a sample of anything. What do you think? Hello?
I want to speak, please. You gave us some instructions in your course outline in red about plagiarism, which we know already. And we know that the university has a no tolerance thing on plagiarism, and that's a 0. But for something like this, when we did the course with Mrs. Brown, she gave us the same kind of speech about plagiarizing her work and whatnot. But she did give us examples. And for me personally, I used it not to keep her work, because I created my own stuff, but it was for me to see, well, okay, this is how it it looks to begin with. But then what she said to us is that we have to create this thing for our class. They have to be personal to the children that we teach. So the activities that we use would be, so my activity, I could teach the same topic like Darlene, for instance, but our objectives may be totally different, our activities are totally different, and they won't look like yours. So if you provide us with an exemplar, it is on how it should look. Because as it stands, I am still a little clueless on how these things would look when you set them out. Because I've just done so far the regular unit plan, the regular lesson plan, the assure lesson plan, but now you're asking us for something else. So I don't plan to teach your work. I just want to see how it should look.
Okay, fine, Denise, I take that. The thing is, it is not how it ought to look. For me, if I say come up with a plan or a cultural plan, which has the following components. Anyhow you lay it out works for me once it has the components. So some persons will use a grid and have the information go into the grid that goes across according to the week. Some persons will simply do a paragraph by paragraph. The problem with giving a sample is that a sample will use any one of these versions. And I don't want you to be locked into the thought that, oh, this is a grid, the example is a grid, so the grid is what it ought to look like. So once we are in agreement that it is not, that the sample is not what I want, the sample is not the standard, the sample is not the do this or nothing else. Once you understand that the sample is simply a very general guide and it may not be an A paper, the students also seem to think that, oh, teachers put the A sample up here. Sometimes what I find is something that is very interesting. The content, the layout, the organization, the presentation is different. It may not be an A paper. But I am going to put the samples up with the understanding. In fact, you all raise your right hand. Let me see. Mr. Allen, put up your hand. All right, and that you just agreed to not copying, not blindly following whatever sample is there. What is more important for me is that you have the different components, and the rubrics will also guide that. All right, so in Unit 2, you are looking at the different cultural components, how I can pull activities, pull a lesson idea from that, okay? Also in that unit, we look at having done the program, how can I compose a text that now integrates culture, all right? Most times when we give a test that is testing just the grammatical components, all right? Now you're going to be asked, coming out of the unit that you would have created, come up with a test that also integrates the cultural components, all right? And that is for you, that is straight for you, all right? Now, after you have done that, you would see that Unit 3 isn't open as yet, but I want to tell you that the material is set to open on Monday of each week, all right? And I'm going to ask a question about that. Unit 3 looks at the internet. Okay, we now live in, as they tell us, a digital age, and there is the explosion of technologies and e-learning tools that can be used. There is the whole matter of digital game-based learning and so forth. So we're going to look at the dangers and the potentials of using the internet and how we can actually get material. One of the problems that you would have noticed in Unit 1 is that one of the challenges that teachers have is actually using authentic material in the classroom. So we're going to look at the internet and everything that it carries, and how do we pull from the internet cultural material, which are A, authentic, B, pedagogically drawn up, meaning simply created for the classroom purposes. So it is tailored, it is doctored language. And what are the different sites that we could use that could help our students where learning the culture is concerned, all right? So that we look at in Unit 3 when it opens up. And the final unit is looking at texts. All right, so I suspect that in the ED 55014 you would have done textbook evaluation. Have you done any textbook evaluation? All right, that's fine. That's fine. So one of the things we're going to be looking at as a group is we have a text, or you have a text that is currently being used in your schools, or there's a text that you're interested in using. How do we go through the text and evaluate it? Okay, so looking at the general components of whether or not it is appropriate for the grade level, whether or not it is set up for the target students, your set of students, whether or not it has, you know, grammar section, whether or not what the activities are like, what you're going to be focusing on in addition to those things, because you can't just evaluate a book based on its culture. So you're going to be looking at the cultural components of the book. So we're going to start that discussion by looking at the books that you use in your class with your students. You are going to have to take a copy of it, go through it, and look at the culture components. We'll identify whether or not it's the Frankenstein approach that is used, or if it's the tour guide approach, whatever it is that is being used. Whether or not you would recommend the book based on the cultural component and why. Having done that, I will give you a text. And that means you don't have to worry. I already have identified the French book for you. Now, you will actually get a text that you will go through and you will decide. You will complete a form, or you will write it up, whichever is better for you. What I am more interested in is whether or not you can look at the pros and the cons of the text as it relates to the cultural component. Any questions? I've been talking for quite a while.
Excuse me, ma'am. You just said you have a book for me?
To evaluate, yes.
What's the name of the book? Is the book that I'm going to be able to get here?
It's online, so I provide you with a link so that you can go in. You'll get my credentials so that you can go in and go through the book.
Okay. All
right. It's a part of the assessment, so I couldn't just let you do your book. All right. Okay. All right. Now, guys, the assessment. You would have realized that in the course guide you have 2 portfolios and the ongoing task. Okay? Portfolio 1 has 2 components, which is the program and the test. The test comes out of the program. And portfolio 2 is where you use the internet to find the materials that can be used for culture. You find a website and you say how you would teach this, and then there is the evaluation of the textbook. Now, I have not put up the details nor the rubrics because looking at it again and considering that the course ends in another couple of weeks, I'm thinking that it is a bit heavy. All right, yeah, I know some of you would be there nodding your head because it's work. So I am thinking of doctoring the information. I cannot change the number of pieces that you do. All right, so I still would have to have or maybe I could. All right, let us look at this together, guys. And this is one of the things that I really want us to do as a group. You have the program creation. You have the test that comes out of the program. You have where you use the internet, your source for information. Well, it's not just the internet, it's wherever you get information from. There is the website assignment and there's a textbook evaluation. That's 5 pieces. I would love to cut it down to 4. I can't go beyond 4. All right? Which one would we remove? This should be a polling activity. Which one would you want us to remove? Let us do this as a group talk.
I don't think that we would be able to actually say which one we should remove without knowing the details.
All right, so let me give you an idea. For the program creation, well, the program I can't change any at all right? Because, so that one has to stay. The program creation is you are asked to create a plan, like a unit plan for a term. It's for a term, but I'm thinking of cutting it down to a 6-week unit plan. Yes, it originally was for a term. So I'm thinking of cutting it down to a 4 to 6 week unit plan. Yes, Denise. So I'm thinking of cutting it down to just a simple 4 to 6 week unit plan. All right. And so you select a theme and ensure that that theme carries over with all the different things that you have to teach. It would run for a 4-week period or a 5 or 6 week period. And what you do is you tell me what the topics will be that would come out of this theme that you're teaching for the unit. You would tell me what the communicative functions would be. What would the students be using the language to do? Okay? You would tell me what activities would be in the plan. You get it all right, Elise? You tell me what activities would come out of the plan. All right, and that would be the plan. So you see, it's not that bad. You simply tell me that, okay, shopping and outer shopping, you would probably have 4 units. One that says, that looks at probably the different colors. One that looks at demonstrative adjectives and pronouns. One that looks at what else comes out of shopping. You can probably look at the CXC syllabus and see the different breakdown that would come on a shopping thing. You simply say, these are the things that the student will do out of it, and these are the cultural activities that will come out of it. What's so hard into that? Seriously, guys. You teach, right? You all teach, yes? And I'm saying, create something for me that brings up the culture. So instead of you doing a unit plan that says, this is the grammar only, I want to see something that integrates the culture. That's all. So that has to stay. I can't change that. The test would be a test that comes out of that 4-week unit plan that you would have created that pulls on the cultural component. So the test would be something, let's say you were teaching introductions, and the test would have something that says you sit a situation or a couple situations that say you have just met your neighbor's friend. How do you greet the person? All right, do you shake hands? Do you kiss? Do you say yeah? Do you turn your back? Wow. So that will bring out the cultural component that come in. You are meeting your great-grandfather who's a war veteran. Do you use two with him or do you use usted? That kind of thing. So it's a little test that comes out of the unit. Now, the test has to be a reflection of the unit that you're creating. So your unit cannot be on shopping and your test be on introductions. Are you with me? All right, fine. The sourcing of the cultural material is you are asked to use whether a magazine, newspaper, the internet, authentic material, come up with actual tangent things and say how you would use this in the class. So if I found an article about preparing Europa Vieja, for example, I would say this highlights this particular cultural component, and this is how I would use it in the class. I'd probably borrow the homemade lamb for a week and have the students prepare the ingredients and cook. You're not asked to prepare a lesson plan. You simply say, okay, this is a cultural item, and this is how I will use it in the students. So this part brings on the activities that you can use in teaching the culture. So that is the sourcing the material and say how you will use it. The website assignment. This is where you are asked to go on the internet and find a site that you will use with your students. But can you still hear? If you can hear Denise, just send me a message because, okay, wonderful. So the website assignment requires you to find a website that lends itself to a cultural activity. Okay, and in this website, you write the instructions for the students to carry out their activity. We will have a session where we go and find sites and we do something like that. So with this one, you find a site, let us say you find a site that teaches about, there is the Bull Parade. There is a festival that tends to take place in different countries that's called the Bull Parade. It started in Argentina, I think, and it's an artistic display of bulls. So they paint on the cows all these different things, landscape, different ideas, and they are judged first, second, third place, and most creative and that sort of thing. Now, I have used this as an example with the students. What you do is you say, okay, students, go to this particular site, and you are given ribbons, first place, second place, third place, and you would go through the displays, say which is first, and say what, using the target language. So the students are involved in the target language while they are engaging in a cultural activity. The site is no longer up, so I can't use that one with you, but we will actually go through that. And the final thing is you are given a textbook and you are asked to go through the text and to say whether or not the text is something that you would use with your class and why. So you would highlight the pros and the cons and whether or not you would use something with your students or with your school. So now you have an idea of what the assessments are. Which one do we get rid of? I know you cannot get rid of all of them. All right. So which ones do we get rid of? You know what I'll do for this one, guys? I'm going to do a choice on the site. Okay, I'm going to ask you to go in between today and tomorrow and indicate which one you want to go. Based on the number of persons who choose which one, I would have to go with that. The foreign language program has to stay, all right? So the ones that I would have now would be the test, the sourcing of the material, the website, and the evaluation. And then you would indicate which one you want to go, and whichever one has the larger number at the end of it, that's the one that I will get rid of. That works? All right. The other thing that I wanted to do, I can merge the sourcing of the material with the website. That's a suggestion from Sherman. Well, that I could easily do. I could make the sourcing of the material say that one must be a website. We could work with that. People.
Yes, that sounds fine.
All right. So then we have decided, yes, you'll have the foreign language program creation, the test that comes out of the program, the sourcing of the material, which must have a website component to it, and the textbook evaluation. Yes? You wanted to get rid of the tests. I'm sorry, Tonya. All right. So we'll have that. Okay. And you'll have a sample test so that you can see, and we'll talk about what not to do when you're doing the test and so forth. So you should be fine. All right. The other thing that I thought of, guys, instead of having one assignment due the 8th and the other due the 18th, was that I would actually let everything be due on the 18th. The problem with that, before you start nodding and grinning, guys, the problem with that is that although you have more time to complete all the tasks, you wouldn't get the opportunity to get feedback before the course ends. And if we're going to take that route, we have to ensure that all the queries that you need to ask are asked, that it is crystal clear to you what it is you're doing, that if you need to have a one-on-one session with me, we have that session. All right? Because if we allow, as I said, I can easily allow you to submit everything at the end as one big assignment. On the system, you'd still have the 4 different components, and it will give you more time to work on them. But it means that you would not get the feedback before the course ends. So let us decide. Do you still want us to go for an assignment that's due the 8th and one that's due the 18th, or do you want us to just have the 18th?
Excuse me, ma'am. The 8th is Monday, you know.
The 8th. I know.
I'll be back.
And that is why we're having, because it's only 4 weeks, you know. It's only 4 weeks. What makes this crazy is because each session is 5 hours long, which in itself is ridiculous. You cannot have a set of students sitting in front of you for 5 straight hours. That makes no sense at all on any level.
We have a class from 10 to 6, you know.
What do you mean by 10 to 6?
9 to 5 Jamaica time. We actually have a class like that.
What do you mean by 10 to 6?
10 to 6 my time. We have a class from 10 to 6.
Yes, but when you say you have a class from 10 to 6, an uninterrupted class from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock?
With break for lunch, an hour.
And how does that work for you guys? Don't you get saturated after a while? No,
do you really want to know? Do you really want to know? I don't think you want to know.
I do, because this is unhealthy. Having 5 straight hours, yes, you have a 10-minute break and then you come back. But thereafter, the literature tells you, the research tells you that after an hour and a half, 2 hours, you have reached that peak. After that is a saturation. There is very little that you hear after that. So, I don't know. Anyway,
well, just so you know, every week we have a class from 9 to 5, like we're going to work, 8 hours, with 1 hour for lunch. And we're supposed to look bright and pay attention and not get distracted and try to bear out hunger. So the fact that you're complaining about 5 hours, that can't be so bad, can it? I'm being very sarcastic, okay?
Also, we should just go straight to 7 o'clock today then, because you guys are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready. But no, on a serious note, it is unhealthy for you to be going 5 straight hours. 9 to 5 is another story altogether. But I want us to decide whether or not we are going to break the assessment, or if we're going to, and I can easily change the 8th, all right? I can change the 8th. If we're going to do it in 2 components, I can change the 8th. It simply means that for the second part, though, you're not going to have very much time. So let us decide whether or not we're going to keep it in 2. If we're keeping it in 2, we can change the Monday to a different date. If we're keeping it in 1, it has to be a unanimous decision. Everybody has to agree. Because if one person is uncomfortable, it means that we can't go ahead with that. So this is where I am now going to call on each person and you tell me what it is that you prefer. It's either the 2 or the 1. After, if it's 2, we will decide whether or not what date we change the thing. So Shervana, would you prefer to submit at the end or to continue as it is? I ask you because you are the first person on my video screen.
Okay, any one of them would be fine with me.
That does not help me. That does not help me. I want you to choose one, please.
I really cannot choose because any one of them really would work for me. It doesn't matter.
Tonya?
To be honest, I don't like everything to be on one day. So I'm kind of leaning towards the first option, but I'm kind of scared of what date you might put it to.
You're going to decide the date, so we'll work with that. So we have 1 for 2. What about you, Darlene?
I kind of agree with Tonya. And the only thing is, if the foreign language program creation is due for the 8th, that's it's a little insane, because if we're doing a 4-week unit plan, then yeah, I don't know, how well we would be able to execute that in 4 days. I'm not sure. I beg your pardon?
It's a 4-week plan. It is something that you can sit down and do in a 5-hour class. Do you want us to use one of the class sessions for that?
No, that's quite fine. Thank you very much.
All right. Tony, Alan?
You said Tony Allen or Tony? Who?
Tony Allen.
Oh, I don't mind having all in one time.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't mind submitting all one time.
All right, so you're for 1. Chantal? 2. Denise?
2, please. And if I may be so facetious, may I please suggest that we have the submission date for this one to be on either the 11th or the 12th.
We'll talk about the submission date right after. Wendy, what about you?
Most persons are saying 2.
Go again, I'm not hearing you clearly.
I'm saying most persons are saying 2, so I'll just work along with that.
So you're doing the bandwagon thing. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Shervana swings both ways. So we're going to go with submitting the two portfolios, right? Now, portfolio 1 is the 8th, which is Monday. So Denise, be facetious.
Either the 11th or the 12th.
The 11th or the 12th? All right, so
Thursday or Friday.
If you go with Thursday or Friday, when do you submit the second portfolio?
You said the 18th. You said they can't be any later than the 18th, right?
I don't know. That I don't know. Let me ask you. For the courses that you did in the summer one, were you allowed to submit anything beyond the cutoff date for the classes?
Yes.
Yes, you were? How far beyond? I'm not hearing you now, darling. Your mouth moves, but you're actually not picking your mic.
Oh, that's because I'm talking to myself. But we actually have one assignment that's due on Saturday from summer one. So I guess maybe that can answer the question, yeah?
Wait, Saturday coming?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Which course is that?
IT.
Oh.
What is your name? EDML 6511.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just thinking, all right. So then, we will go with the 12 for the portfolio 1. And then for portfolio 2, today is the 4th, and in fact, today is the 4th. If that can be done, I am going to give you, Monday the 15th for portfolio 1. All right, and then for portfolio 2, I'm going to ask that that be submitted the 26th. That means that you would have had a week beyond the class cutoff point. That works? So, yes. So portfolio 1 would be due the 15th and portfolio 2 the 26th. All right. Now I cannot put them up tonight because I'm going to have to go in and do some modification. So I put the assignments and modified rubrics up over the weekend so that you can now go through. And I put the examples, the samples up as well. All right. Are there any other? The other thing that I will do currently, as it is, the classes, the units open each week on Monday at 2 o'clock. All right. For those who work a little faster than the others, I think I'm just going to open everything and remind you, send out the reminders so that you know that this happens this time, that time, and you keep checking the calendar. All right? So I'll open all the units. I will modify the assessment and the rubrics and put those up over the weekend. And you will continue to use the forum and the message component to send me anything before the next Zoom session. All right? Now, for the next session, which is going to be next week, Tuesday, there are a couple of things that I want you to come prepared for us to talk about, okay? You're going to come so that we can start talking about that unit that you have to create and the test, okay? So you're going to come so that we can discuss that. But because Unit 3 is also going to be opened, we're going to also talk about the internet, the pros and cons outside of what is there, and any particular site that you have found that you're thinking of using for your activities. Okay, that's for the internet. Still within the sourcing of materials, I want you to consider any cultural items that you may have read, seen, or owned that you could use with your students to teach a cultural component in the class. So there are a couple of things that I'm going to want you to put together for next week, because next week we're going to have a full Zoom session. All right. This week was just to get a look at the faces, get a feel of where you were, have a couple of discussions, talk about the need for you to go on and read so that we don't have to have a session where we simply regurgitate the material. So next week we're coming for a practical Zoom session where you A, come with ideas for your program, B, come with ideas for your test, C, come with sites that you have looked at that you could use for the cultural component, and D, you are also going to look at different cultural artifacts that you have read, have seen, that you can use. Now, because this aspect of the assignment actually requires you to show me what it is, it means that you're going to have to ensure that if you're talking about money, you take pictures of the money or you find the appropriate images, all right, for the class. So next week is basically a show and tell session where we flesh through all the assignments up to that point. Are we agreed on that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, any last comment, any question, anything before I go for today? No? All right, just a couple of reminders, guys. Remember that the material is there. You need to go in. The sessions are set up for twice per week. I expect you to log in minimum twice per week. For those who cannot manage the compact 5 hours at a time when you log in, you can then go in every day or more than twice per day and go and do the material. But as a requirement, because the sessions are meant to be twice per week, I expect you to do that. I have to take a register. All right, so that is one of the reasons why I'm doing this. And that is how I can tell Tony Allen that he hasn't been into the class as he should be. All right, I'm picking up on you, Tony, because I remember you more than anybody else. Remember that the activities contribute to your grade at 10%, and you know that 10% can make you pass or fail. So please do the engagement task because that is added to the portfolio grades. And remember that at this level, you have to pass each component, or it's not an accumulative grade where at the end that works. You have to ensure that you pass each of the assignments. Okay? You have my cell number. You can shoot me a WhatsApp message if you want. If you need to have a one-on-one session, just send me a message on the system. I will respond. Okay? It is lovely seeing the faces and hearing you. And next week, we're going to have a more vibrant session. All right? Because now you're getting a better feel of what is and what isn't. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, it was lovely meeting you. And next week, be prepared for us to go through for a couple of hours while we flesh out and get everything on sorted. Okay? Oh, and the session has been recorded. So for those who missed the first section or those who need to go back through, I will request it so that I can put it on the site for you to have access. All right? Have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right, see you next week.
Thank you.
No problem.
Bye. See you, miss. Bye.
Bye.